And what has been my crime? My crime has been to confess publicly Christ as Savior.
The signs are rapidly fulfilling.
I'm Scott, and we have 3 young boys. And we made our first stepping stone to our neck of the woods back in 2020. So I'll be going through with you guys our journey leading up to our move. And I hope you feel encouraged and blessed, and that you kind of understand the experience that we went through, so that you guys don't have to go through our difficulties or some of the difficulties that we went through. So yeah, I don't mind starting my presentation now. Okay, so like I said, this is our stepping stone. We're still on our journey, and we are obviously looking forward to where God will decide to take us next. So if we move on to the next slide. So hello, we're the Scotts. So my name is Shamira. That's my husband, Darren. And we've got 3 boys aged 7, 5, and 3. Sorry, 7, 5, and 2, sorry. Now we live in rural West Wales, in a rural village in West Wales, and that's our current home. Now, it was 2020 when we moved from London to Wales. However, it was during the pandemic, which wasn't so great. Now, this is how our journey started. So it was the beginning of 2019. And my husband says to me, let's start looking for somewhere to live. Now, we were considering Bristol, which was another city, as it was where my family are, and I wanted to be closer to my mum. Now, we started looking in Bristol and the surrounding areas and smaller towns in between London and Bristol. Now, we were first-time buyers, and we didn't want to spend a great deal on a property, and we're finding our options to be very slim. Now, not happy with what we were finding, my husband then says, let's look in Wales, as it's cheaper, and we can consider properties in the countryside with land. Next slide, please. So if I just rewind back to 2010, next slide, please. Now, after church hopping for many years as a student in London, myself and my then boyfriend, now husband, stumbled across a small Adventist church in Clapham. Now, I was told by a friend that this was a vibrant, youthful place full of young people. But lo and behold, when we arrived, I was the only young one there, aged 24, and there was about 5 other people, most of whom were over the age of 50. However, due to their kind-heartedness and the fact that they had a vegan lunch every Sabbath, we were drawn in and remained there for just under 5 years. Now, this is the place where we learned about true Adventism. Now, I was born Adventist, but Darren wasn't, and he came into the faith in his 30s. We also learned the spirit of prophecy, country living, home education, medical missionary work, and the laws of health. But although hearing and reading about country living, we were very comfortable where we were. I had landed my graduate job as a designer in a city, and Darren changed his career and had just started studying to become an electrician. Now, we were unmarried and had no plans to move. and we were really content with how life was going. Now, we married in 2013 and had baby number 1 a year later. I was officially out of work in 2015 and became a full-time mum. Next slide, please. So 2 children later, and sorry, if we fast forward to 2018, so 2 children later and 2 years after having my second child, I was working as a virtual office manager for a vegan restaurant for about a year. Now, unbeknown to me at the time, this job helped provide us with the finances towards our property. Darren was previously self-employed, but then joined a large company to work for in 2017. This also provided the finances for our ticket out, and again, unknowingly to us, at the time, allowed him to get an immediate transfer from London to Wales. And also to note, we were currently living with my husband's mother. So about half of his income was able to be saved towards the purchase of our house, compared to most of my income being saved, as I didn't have to pay for any bills. So now we hit the end of summer 2019 and we're unsatisfied with property options in England. And then Darren says, let's look in Wales. Now, I wanted to be close to my mum in Bristol. So I said, let's keep the search in South Wales and no more than an hour away from Bristol. Now, being pregnant with our 3rd child and having the other 2 children present with us, we traveled back and forth over 4 weeks from London to Wales, viewing multiple properties, long weekends from Friday to Monday for those 4 weeks. Now, as the seasons come closer to the end of the year, your choices of good properties on the market become quite scarce, as property sales are at their peak from spring to summer. So we felt we were running out of options and time, as we wanted to buy immediately. Now, we saw properties with and without land and placed offers on a few homes, which fell through, which God clearly closed the door to, but we were truly gutted at the time. We felt that time was running short. I was now 9 months pregnant. We wanted to get something quickly, but also didn't want to make any bad choices, especially when it came to buying land. Darren asked if we could widen our property search to areas further afield, to which I reluctantly agreed to. And our options for buying property with land wasn't looking great. The first week in December, we viewed this house. From seeing it on the property website, it looked great, but I felt it was a little bit smaller when we viewed it in person. Plus, I was contemplating the long distance to my mum's home, which was about 2.5 hours away. My husband liked the house when viewed, but we ended up not putting an offer in straight away, which was a big mistake. The property is currently located in a small rural village, and the nearest town being about 5 miles away. Next slide, please. So fast forward January 2020, my husband returns to Wales to view another round of properties just before I give birth. He puts an offer on 2 further houses, which after consideration, retracted his offer as the properties had too many issues. February 2020, our baby is a week old. We put in an offer on the home we saw back in December 2019, which is this house. But a few weeks after, we have lockdown in the UK. Next slide, please. So I'm panicking, thinking, what are we going to do? I'm thinking, this is it, we're stuck. So then I start praying for an open door and feel the urge to start packing. Fast forward to August 2020 now. In answer to prayer and an open door, we exchanged on the house and had to sort ourselves out for the move. And based on our experience, I can confirm the worst time to move is during a crisis. God knew I had to pack most of our things quickly when I had that initial urge to pack a few months before, because I had to rush to Bristol with the children for 2 weeks to help look after my mother, who then passed away 3 days after we received the keys for this house in Wales. The day we were due to drive to Wales to receive the keys, I actually told my mum that I didn't want to go. as I didn't want to leave her. And I really felt so overwhelmed because there was so much going on. And to be fair, I think I was willing to sacrifice our move to be with my mum instead. But I do thank God that through my mum, he encouraged me to just go. My husband returned back to London after we moved our things into our new home in August. And then he officially joined us by receiving his transfer to Wales in October 2020. The pandemic, back to the same slide, please. The pandemic, the sudden death of my mother, having 3 children to take care of on my own in a new land without my husband was a lot to deal with. These were hard difficulties to face. But even through hard times, we must press on and go where God is leading us. Now, Darren later left the large company and became self-employed again in April 2021. And we know that that job was only for a season, specifically for our move out of the city. However, becoming self-employed again meant that Darren would go back and forth to London for work for a number of months until he was in a position to establish himself here in Wales. So this meant that he would be gone for between 1 and 2 weeks at a time in London for many months. But I thank God he is now in the process of setting up an electrical shop here, and he is now working locally. So I thank God for this new opportunity. Next slide, please. So things to learn from. It's always much harder or even impossible to move during a crisis. So don't get caught out. Go where God leads you, and don't be stubborn as this can cause delays or close the door completely. Remember the stepping stones you may be on at the moment are heading towards the place where God intends to take you. So just trust his timings. Having a trade and being self-employed can be very beneficial when in the countryside for work. So being handy and knowing how to do or fix things yourself is definitely a plus. Be open-minded, open to change, and willing to adapt, even when it comes to your profession. And last, hard times and difficulties may be placed in your way to throw you off track, but don't give up and don't lose hope. Next slide, please. So our thoughts at the beginning of our journey. We didn't want to make any rush decisions back in 2019. And we now know that there are many areas in Wales which are prone to flooding and adverse weathers. We found that many properties at the time of our search, which had a lot of land, were either derelict, needed a lot of work doing to them, or were just too small internally. And for our young family, a large project of work wasn't something which we could take on at the time. Now, back to the other slide, please. Sorry. Thank you. Now, our thoughts now. This isn't our forever home, and we are looking to become more rural at some point. Now we have been here for a short while and visited many places around. We are now in more knowledge of what we would like for our next move. At present, we are partially off-grid in this home, which we have a septic tank, we have outdoor oil tanks, gas cylinders, and we also have a fireplace where we're able to have hot water, and it does all our heating system as well, especially if our electrics go out in really bad weathers. Now, this move has helped us realize how sustainable we'd like to live and how it's so important to be self-sufficient, where we generate our own power and water and, grow your own produce as well. So now we're more inclined towards looking at possibly building our next place. Also, oil and gas prices have recently risen. So our thoughts now are, how can we be completely self-sufficient without reliance on external providers? and finding land with its own water supply and having a woodlands for fuel, etc. There's a vast amount of land for sale, which is what we've seen, but we understand that most has been for agricultural or livestock use. And getting planning permission for change of use isn't always easy or granted. So time to research is really needed. So our journey still continues. The last slide, please. So these are just some things that we weren't expecting to have here. So although we initially thought we were the only Adventist family here, God has blessed us with other Adventist families very close to us, and a church group who we've had the privilege of worshiping with in person since 2020. We've been able to create a weekly group meetup with other Adventist homeschoolers nearby and have had non-Adventist families join us too. So our group totals about 11 families, which is split between 2 groups. So God is using us here to witness to non-Adventist families who are being drawn to the biblical Sabbath, and it's been pretty amazing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to our experience. It's definitely been an up and down experience for us, but I hope you feel encouraged. I hope there's things that you can gain from what we've gone through and what we're still going through as well. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I'll now allow the other groups to be able to present their experience too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shamira. And that was absolutely well presented. And I really like the way that you took us through the journey. And apparently you're still on the journey.
We are. We've just taken this, it's just a stepping stone.
Okay,
so like I said, we're in a village. So in our village is a small rural village, it's a parish village, and there's about 113 houses here. So there's not many people in our village. Our closest town is just about 5 miles out from here. But yeah, we're surrounded by hills, literally rolling hills, and there's loads of farmers' land, and our children really do enjoy the environment, the outdoor environment here. I think coming from London, and you know, the concrete jungle is just, it's loud, it's busy. We were in the heart of the city in London. So coming here where a lot more people, a little bit more laid back, but you've got a lot more outdoor activities, especially for the children to get involved with. So we do find that our days are busy, but we're out. And we've come across so many new families, both Adventist and non-Adventist. And yeah, we really do like our experience here so far.
good, exciting time. So you're camped out at the mountain before you go into the promised land. What I'm going to ask people to do, if you do have questions, save your questions, because what can happen is that once we start asking questions, then the whole meeting could get hijacked without the others presenting. So I want you to write your questions down for each speaker or each presenter, and then we take all the questions at the end. So we're going to move on to the next presenter. We're getting a weird feedback. I'm not too sure if it's my mic or some feedback from someone else. So who's coming up next? Okay, so Gerard and Shirley, welcome. And I'm going to hand the entire platform over to you. You can introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Okay. Well, we are Gerard and Shirley Fordham. And can we have the first slide, please? No. Right, I'll start talking while the first slide comes up.
Yeah, perhaps you could introduce yourself while the slides.
Yeah, well, you'll get to hear who we are as we go through our talk, I think. So first of all, I grew up as an Adventist, and I had always known that Adventism recommended country living, but my ideas about it were very vague, to say the least. Then I remember attending a weekend of talks about country living from an Adventist perspective, and this stimulated us to start avidly studying the booklet Country Living. And then later I came across some Adventist websites about country living, and these I would especially like to recommend to you. The first one that I came across, all right, yeah, the next slide, please. Okay, that's a house where we're living at the moment. We'll be talking about that a little later on. And then the next slide, please. That's it. Right, the first website that I came across was one called endtimepreparedness.org by a brother Meisner. Now, when I came across this, I was really happy. It's, you know, it was so informative, and it talked about country living from an Adventist perspective. I'll say a little bit more about it in a minute. There's an associated website with that one, which is by Nick Meisner, Brother Meisner's son, and that's called Sustainable Preparedness. That one tends to talk about how to go off grid, and that one is for non-Adventists as well as Adventists. Okay, now the next website that I came across was by Dave Westbrook, and that is called backtoenoch.org. And that is very informative, very interesting. And he does an associated website called Country Living University, which gives lots of information. The only thing I would say about that is that it comes from America, and in America, in many states, you can buy a piece of land and build a house on it. That's very, very difficult in this country because there's not nearly as much countryside, and so the planning laws are very strict for building in the countryside. And that, I think, is a big difference between the USA and Britain. So it makes buying a country property in Britain rather more expensive, but it is still possible. We've done it, and we are not anybody special. Right, the third website, which I'd like to recommend, is one called preparingtostand.org by a Jim Buller. And this gives lots of practical information. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Yeah, right, we're going back to End Time Preparedness website, and they give a video there about why be prepared. And I'd like to take two quotes from that, and then my wife is going to talk about it. So these are the quotes. The first one is from Country Living, pages 9 and 10. Again and again, the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country where they can raise their own provisions, for in the future the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. And then the next quote is from Last Day Events, page 227 and 228. The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast, that is the Sunday laws, will be formed before probation closes. For it is to be the great test for the people of God, by which their eternal destiny will be decided. Shirley's going to make some more comments on this.
Right, so we see that one of the main reasons Sister White tells us to move to the countryside is so that we can grow our own provisions, our own food, when we can't buy or sell. And we see that with what's happening in the world, that probably Sunday laws are going to be upon us fairly soon. Now, if you're still in the city at that point, don't completely panic, because Sister White says the last opportunity to get out of the city is when Sunday laws come. She says to get out and move into the smaller towns and villages. So, you know, we shouldn't panic. We should be measured in our efforts to move out. But this is a main reason today to move into the countryside. It's so we've got somewhere to grow our own food, because literally once we can't buy ourselves, we can't go to the supermarket anymore and get it. And so we need to be ready to do that. So let's prayerfully consider where God wants us to be, because we've got to trust that God has a place for each one of us.
Okay, thank you. When we can't buy and sell, incidentally, just to add to that, is going to be during the third phase of the Sunday law, just before probation closes. And that is going to be our great test. So let's go on to preparing to stand. This is the next quote. And in that, he gives a little talk on what he labels asset or liability. So what he's saying is, while you are still in the city, learn all the skills that you can learn, that you will need when you are in the countryside, because the country is so different from city living. And he gives this quote from 19 manuscript releases, page 26. And he says, we can and should have tact and knowledge of trades, in building, in planting and in sowing, and knowledge of how to cultivate the land will make rough places much smoother. And so we need to learn, as you know, if we have to stay in the cities, we still need to learn as much as we can so that we are an asset when we eventually do move. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Yes, so the first thing to do while you're still in the city is to solve the income equation. Now, when we first started thinking about country living, we had already gone some distance towards it, in that we had got out of debt. We had actually paid off our mortgages, and I never bought anything on hire purchase. So we never had any debts. And I'd like to recommend 2 chapters from Spirit of Prophecy. The first one is from Counsels on Stewardship, the chapter entitled The Tyranny of Debt, pages 249 to 283. And the second chapter is from Adventist Home, the chapter called The Use of Money, pages 367 to 389. So get out of debt first, then you've got to think how you're going to earn your income when you're actually in the country, because there's nowhere near as many jobs. Next slide, please. Right, that's it, work. Well done. Right, the first option to think about now is to do the same type of job as you're doing in the city. That might be possible for some. For us, it wasn't, because we had a health food shop, and so that wasn't an option for us. The second option, which is getting much commoner and much easier for many people, is to work from home. Again, that wasn't an option for us. The third option is to work in a related job in the same field. Now, for me, I might have become a health food rep, and that would enable me to live in the countryside and go around different health food shops. So I was, I would have been qualified to do that. And the next option is to get a job in a skill which you've had in the past, or possibly a hobby which you've very keen on. I used to be, before I had a shop, a vegan chef. So maybe I could work as a vegan chef in a health resort, which many of which are in the countryside. So that would have been an option for me. But I must say that having been self-employed, I didn't like the idea of going back to being employed. So another option would have been an online business. Some people can do that, and some people have done that very successfully. But I think you need to start that before you move out into the countryside, and so that you you're not left. It succeeds. It's going to succeed. And another option is a small market gardening. One, you could possibly keep bees, but you need about 150 hives to make a living out of it. But you have to know what you're doing, because the bees could get diseases and die and so on. Or you could grow blueberries, for example. We've known people who've done that. But again, you need to know what you're doing. And the last option is the one that we took, was to think outside the box. And so, as I said, I was self-employed. We had our own health food shop, and God had blessed us financially. And we had built up some assets, and when I always kept accounts, so I knew how much I needed to live on, or we needed to live on, I should say. And I worked out that when I was in my mid-50s, I could retire, and then I could move out into the countryside. I was about 50 at this time, so there was only another 5 years to go. And we did that, and it worked. So, okay. Right. Next slide, please. While we were still living in the town, incidentally, we did learn to grow food, and We also went what they call wolfing. That's WWOOF, which is willing workers on organic farms. So we gained a little bit of experience that way. Right, now, having solved the income problem, you're now ready to look for the ideal property. Now, I emphasize these are the features to look for in an ideal property. Most of you, or many of you, won't have find the ideal one, but this is where you should be aiming for. So number one, it's, before I come to that, I'm just looking at my notes, you have to decide which part of the country you want to go to. And the way we decided that was that West Wales was the nearest place to where we were living, which was in the south of England, opposite the Isle of Wight. It was the nearest place where we could afford a small holding. So that's why we chose West Wales. Okay, so we're starting to look now. Get to know the area well first. And these are the features. 1, 10 plus acres. So you've got enough land, you've got 5 acres you need for timber for your wood-fired boilers and wood cook stove. And 5 acres, well, you probably need about 1 acre for growing your own food. So yeah, you could. So the next thing to look for is having your private water on your land. A lot of rural properties have private sewerage, but not so many have private water. We had a well here and we dug a second well so that we don't run out of water. The third feature to look for is that the access is not too easy. You don't want to be on the side of a road, but not too difficult. You don't want to have to ford a stream or drive across a farmer's land. Right, the fourth feature is that the soil is good for growing food. The way you can determine that is either digging up a bit of soil, putting it in your hand, and if it sticks together but is a crumbly, that means it's fairly good soil. If it's just all crumbly, it's too sandy, and if it doesn't crumble, it's too clayey. And the other thing to look for is, are there lots of big trees around? If there are, they grow on good soil. They don't grow on poor soil. Number 5, it is try to be on a slope. If you're on the top of a hill, it's too exposed. If you're on the bottom of a hill, you can get waterlogged sometimes in the winter. But if you're on a slope, you're okay. And south or southwest slope is ideal. A north-facing slope can be cold. Next one is timber. You want enough wood to be able to use for for heating and cooking. Number 7 is seclusion, ideally no near neighbors. That does put the price up, but that's the ideal. And the last one to consider is the condition of the property, because you can always change that. You can't change the other features. And the last thing to say is it should be a place that you love. Okay, Now we're going to actually talk about how we actually got the place that we're living in now, and my wife's going to talk about that.
Right, so next slide, please. Right, so this is our house, and what we did in the first instance was we did a lot of looking online. You can obviously, there's various searches you can look online for properties, and we chose a few houses, maybe 3, 4 or half a dozen that you find that you think might be suitable, and then we came up to Wales and we stayed with some friends here, and we looked at all these. We looked at all these properties, and we actually decided to buy a different one to this one, and we put an offer on it, but then we got gazumped, and so the Lord closed the door on that one. And by the time that had happened, this was the only one on our list that was still available. We were a bit worried about buying this property because it needed a lot of work doing to it. And, my husband isn't really that good at DIY. Timothy, our son, fortunately, is quite handy. So we prayed about it, and we put a fleece to the Lord and said to the Lord, if we offer them less than the asking price and they come back and accept that, then we will know that it's from you. And before this, they had refused to accept anything less than the asking price. It had already been on the market about a year, this house, when we looked at it, and they weren't happy at all to accept anything less. But when we prayed about it, we offered them 20,000 less, and within 2 days they came back and said yes. So we were quite amazed at that, but obviously it was the Lord's doing. If you can have the next slide, please. Yeah, we're continuing on with the house. The next one. That's the back of the house. This one shows all that roofing you can see on the back there. We had to replace. Timothy did a lot of it himself. Gerard helped. Some friends of Timothy's helped, but we had to replace all that roofing because there were significant leaks. That's another picture of the roofing that we had to replace all that. And then we put new windows and doors in a lot of places as well. Most of those. Okay, next one. Oh, that's wood burning stove. Yeah, we put in. There was one in, but it wasn't very good. So we put a new wood burning stove in the living room. So that's quite a good one that we've had put in there. And this is our wood store. And we have a barn where we keep all the wood. Fortunately, there was a lot of the house had been lived in by an elderly couple, and the wife had died quite a while before, but the husband had had dementia for about 10 years, so everything was very neglected. And so we ended up having to prune the trees extensively and take off lots of big branches, which some of them were just falling off anyway. And so we ended up with a lot of wood, which is a good thing. So that's our wood there. Okay, next one. This is some of the work we're doing. This is work in progress. This is going to be the utility at the moment. You can see the tumble dryer there. This one's going to be the kitchen. So we're still kind of working on all this, but we have done the main things now in getting the roof fixed, so there's no leaks. So we've been able to put in. We've dry lined the walls, put insulation in, and so on. And the next thing to do is put the kitchen itself in. And we've managed to get quite a good second-hand Rayburn, which is a wood cook stove, as well as it will heat water and to heat a little bit of radiators as well. So that's got to go in as well in that kitchen. It's coming along. Next one. Well, this is our beehive. So this is out in the field. Gerard's been learning about beekeeping, and we've acquired 2 hives last autumn. And we've managed to get them through the winter, so we're getting there with that. So we're hoping we'll get some honey this year from them. Next one. That's a view across our field. We've at this time of year, it's not the best to see the vegetable garden, but we have got a vegetable garden. We've planted quite a lot of fruit trees, and there was some fruit trees here, but mainly they're cooking apples. So we've planted other things like plums and pears and things. That's looking across the view from the front of the house. We're looking across to the hills, so it's quite a nice view you've got. That gives you a bit more of the view. We're next to a community wood as well, which is a nice place to be. this certainly was a place that we really loved as soon as we saw it for the location. Next one. Yeah, that's that. I think we've gone back now. It looks similar anyway. Oh yeah, that's another of our views across from the side of the house, I guess, looking down the valley. Oh yeah, that's looking up the other way. So we are on the side of a hill here, which is
southwest
facing. Yes, so we're in a good position in that respect. And one of the things you notice here, oh, that's the end now. One of the things you notice here is that in the mornings, often we'll wake up and the valley is full up with mist, but we're above the mist here. We're in the sunshine. Really, they built this house in the right place. So Gerard, just say a few more things to finish off now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say we've been developing how we've been developing since we've been here. My wife has said quite a few things about what we've been doing. I just wanted to emphasize we've been planting lots of fruit trees and bushes, and we started a vegetable garden. We've done quite a lot of fencing, and but it's not just been developing the property. We've also spent quite a number of times going into the cities to give out great controversies. So we are also witnessing as well. Right. Now, just one last thing. We are aiming to be self-sufficient. Now, there's 4 things you need to be self-sufficient. It's not impossible, and they are: you need your own water, you need to grow your own food, you need wood for heating and cooking, and lastly, produce your own electricity. Okay, thank you.
Right, and if you want to get in contact with us, that's our email address there to ask any further questions. Also, if people want to come to the countryside to look at properties, we can probably put you up. Although at the moment the house is a bit, in the middle of still doing it up, so it's not the most comfortable. And the other thing we'd like to be able to do is if people, want to learn about country living, they'd like to come and maybe help us, because there's a lot to do here. They want to come and help us either with planting or with building, and you can, we'll try and share what we've learned so far about country living with you. So hopefully it'll benefit us both. Okay, so God bless you all, and yes.
On to Jack and Joy.
Yes, on to Jack and Joy now. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Gerald and Shirley. I'm very delighted to see that there's work in the progress, and you probably should hear from us. Maybe we should come and, pay you a visit and see what's the prospect in your neck of the wood. We are going to swiftly move on to Jack and Joy, who I also know to be veterans in this area. And then after that, we will have question and answer from all of the presenters. So Jack, Joy, over to you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Shirley and Gerard and Shamira. It was very good. It's funny how it's all going to gel in together, and we all just live within an hour of each other, so that's another good thing. So we'll introduce ourselves. We're Jack and Joy Rain. We moved to Wales 27 years ago, so yes, we are and feel veterans. We have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. And we were baptized 34 years ago in Coventry Central Church. I'd just like Jack to just say a short prayer for us, and then he'll continue, as is our testimony, how we got here 27 years ago. We'll try and go through as quick as we can. Okay, let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we know that you desire your people to be proficient in various things of life, and also to move to the country, especially if they have children. And we pray, Father, that as we give our testimony of how our journey brought us to a country location,
that we can be a blessing to others as we explain this journey to them. Guide us, we pray, and may everyone be blessed. In the name of Jesus, amen. Okay, we first heard about country living from our daughter-in-law, Carolyn Rain. And so we're fairly new Adventists, about 5 years into Adventism. And so when we learned something new, we were in the habit of doing something about it in those days. So we put our house up for sale and we had plenty of interest, but no buyers. At the same time, or shortly after, my job, I learned that my job was moving to a new location about 40 miles away. And so we started looking in that area for properties, but we struggled to find the home that we wanted because we lived in the Midlands, and country homes in the Midlands were priced fairly high 27 years ago, certainly. In the meantime, we had a holiday in Wales, and as we spent time in Wales over a couple of weeks, we found that there was properties were a bit cheaper in Wales, but we didn't do anything about it at that time. I was still concerned about whether I should move with my job or not move with my job. It was about 40 miles away. I'd been always within about 5 miles going to my work, so 40 miles seemed a long way to me. For some people, it's not a long way, but it seemed that way for me. Anyway, after we come back off holiday, we had an offer on our home, and it was sold within about 2 months. So now we were homeless with no house. I still had a job, and so yes. So with new home to go to, we lived for a while in a 12-foot caravan. We had a caravan that we used to go on holiday with, and we moved it to Joy's sister's garden, and we lived in this 12-foot caravan for a while. We put our possessions into a friend's, well, it wasn't quite a garage, yeah, more like a garage, and our possessions were there. And so that's where we were now, homeless and living in a 12-foot caravan.
And there were 3 of us because our youngest son, Daniel, was still with us. So he actually stayed in my sister's house as we slept in the garden in the caravan, which was fine for a few weeks. We've actually forgotten how many weeks, but it was quite a few. But winter was coming on, and Jack was still working. We were still looking, and the caravan was getting damp and it was getting very cold. So our daughter says, well, move into my house. So we did.
She had a spare house at the time.
Yeah, we moved into her house, and that was nearer the city. So I said, Lord, we wanted to move to the country, and now we're getting closer to the city.
Yeah.
So
okay.
our faith was really being tested.
Okay. So we started now looking more earnestly for properties in Wales. And we went down every other Sunday, and sometimes on the Monday I had holiday off and we stayed bed and breakfast. But we couldn't find the home that we wanted. We did find one that was possible, but by the time we'd bought it and used our savings to get it shipshape, we would have found that we had no money left, and that all 3 of us would have needed to get a car to go to work. And we thought that this was a backward step compared to what we already had. So a bit dejected, we came back from Wales, and I was praying all week to the Lord what we should do, thinking that, yeah, the move seemed to be worse than getting us better. And I had that still small voice during my prayer in the middle of the week, and the Lord said, look for a derelict to renovate. Well, we thought, okay, let's look for a derelict. And so we eventually we eventually got a date for my job to move. So I needed to move with it or resign and find somewhere to live. So we continued looking in Wales, but we didn't find any derelicts to get excited about?
Well, that's probably my fault because I wasn't keen on moving to Wales, just the same as Shamira. I just wanted to move in the country near our family and near Jack's new workplace. So that was my idea, but God had his idea.
Mm.
My heart wasn't in it at all. But I was ready to realise that Jack and Daniel were both keen to move to Wales, and it looked as though the Lord wanted us to do. So I got on my knees once more, after many times. I can remember the spot now in our little caravan, tears streaming down my face. Okay, Lord, wherever you want me to go, I will go. And it wasn't until I said that prayer that our journey actually started.
To come to a conclusion.
Yeah. Remember, at this time we had no home and probably no job or income. And I just needed to heed God's voice because he knew best.
Mm-hmm.
So that.
All of this was done by faith, as you can see. I mean, we're really stepping out of our comfort zone by doing it the way we've done this. I mean, moving out of your home with nowhere to go, but believing that that's what the Lord wanted us to do.
It felt like we were Abraham.
Abraham, yeah. Anyway, we went back to Wales this next weekend, and we found nothing. And we were on our way home. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and we passed through a local town. Joy needed to go to the toilet, and we knew there was one open in the car park of this town. And off she went. And I noticed that we parked opposite an estate agent's window. And so I went over the road and looked in the window. And to my surprise, there was a property. We'd looked in this window a few times. There was a derelict property, brand new for sale, not brand new, but it was new to be on sale at a very good price. So we obviously come home then, but the next day we phoned the estate agent and made an appointment for the next weekend. Now we went down on the Sunday, and the estate agent organised that the farmer should show us around the property, and he showed us around the property, and it was derelict. it was a derelict property. Go on.
We're going to show you the photograph in a minute, but I just want to say this first. I was still quite not heeding the Lord's voice. I was still looking for that country cottage with the roses all around the door. So this wasn't really what I was, thinking of. The property we're going to show you the photo had no windows, no doors, slates missing on the roof, walls falling down. It was vacated actually 50 years ago, which was the year I was born. But
so if you want to show that picture now.
Yeah, show that picture. Can you show the first picture, please?
Okay. We'll carry on a little bit.
It especially didn't have roses around the door. It didn't even have a door.
Yeah.
So if we could have the first picture.
That's the back one.
That's the back
entrance, but you can see there's a wall falling down. That's the front entrance.
And it was very, very muddy, as you can see.
Can you believe we bought that thing? Yeah, that was how it was at the front, and you saw the back one. What happened was the next weekend, we didn't actually put an offer in the first time we saw it. The next weekend, we took our son and daughter-in-law, Paul and Carolyn, with us. And we also found out from the farmer that he'd actually applied for planning permission to renovate it into a livable home. And so that's what happened. And I think there was something we've got.
Sorry, we've got notes here.
Okay. What we did, we went back to the farmer's house. He invited us back to the farmer's house because we showed an interest in it. Mm-hmm. And around the kitchen table, we negotiated a price and then shook hands on the deal. And within 2 months, that property was ours. So
I just want to inject here.
Oh, go on then.
Because there's a very important point here. We were saying to move to the country because you've got children, move to the country to grow your own fruit and produce. But there's also probably a lot of families out there saying, well, my children are old, they're never going to move out of the city. But Daniel was still with us. He came to look at the property. He was very excited, like his dad. And we said to him, well, you can come with us and help, or you can stay where you are. You've got a job, you've got a car. we'd help him find somewhere to live.
Mhm.
But he knew enough. As you can imagine, he had one foot in the world and one foot in the church, because we were new Christians.
He was
and,
12 years old when we got baptized.
but he said, I am coming with you to help, because if I stay where I am a lost man. He knew enough that his association where he was in the city wasn't what God wanted for him. So even at the age of 19, it's still, God is able to still get your teenagers to want to come out into the country.
Mhm.
And he was baptized a few years later. I'm sorry, we're going to have to speed up now then.
Yeah, well, I've already said that one
Mhm.
there. We've got our notes above the
So we're
computer
now
here.
owners of a derelict
Probably,
farmhouse
yeah.
in the middle of a field of sheep and mud. Our children were in the car praying. That is a very important point. Prayer is essential through all your negotiations and your plans. And we just went ahead with the sale. We found a local solicitor and things started to move. Everything just seemed to start falling into place, which I find happens when you're doing the Lord's will.
Yeah.
But then we had to find a caravan to live in, because obviously there it is. That's what we lived in for 2.5 years while we did the
first part of the property.
First part of the house. And that was a miracle in itself, which we'll share with you if we get time at the end, the miracles that happened. We've got much more to say, but time's going on. So just let's highlight some of the miracles that happened through our journey. I'll let you explain. We'll try and do as quick as we can, because we're running a bit over.
Okay, when I actually resigned from my job, and I was a caretaker of the old works while all of the people moved to the new works 40 miles away. And because they thought I wasn't going to move, I said I wasn't moving, they made me the caretaker of the old place. And it was my job to take stuff down there when they phoned up. And so anyway, I got my statement from the pension, and it told me how much pension I was going to get, but the £10,000 that they had been given for being offered for redundancy wasn't there. And I thought, okay, and I prayed to the Lord earnestly that morning and asked him what I should do.
We needed that £10,000.
Yeah, it was very much part of our plans. And anyway, the Lord gave me the distinct impression. He says, when you go to the new location today, which you will be going to, ask one of the bosses what can be done about it. And sure enough, I got to work that day, got a phone call, go to the new location with some parts. And my immediate gaffer, I had the impression not to talk to him. My other gaffer was away. And so I talked to the new gaffer, and he happened to be walking past me at the time. So I got braved up to him and told him what the problem was. And he said to me, I'll give you an answer within 24 hours. Sure enough, within 24 hours, he rang me up and says, you've got your £10,000. And that was a miracle itself. We cut that short, but it was really very much a miracle.
The caravan was a miracle as well. We bought that for £250 in a site in Stratford. They were selling off their old vans to replace new ones. So that's a good thing to think about. It had central heating, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom, lounge with a fire. So it was old, but it was perfect for our needs. And God knew that I needed a place to have a little nest to make things comfortable while the men were working hard.
And it come with no tow bar on the front. And I'm not going to tell you because it's very long. But another miracle happened to allow us to attach the tow bar on the front. But one of the main ones was the electric.
We had to get all the services down there to the house.
Yeah, we needed electric, water, and telephone down to the property. We were going to use oil or coal or wood or whatever to heat the place. But the electric one was quite interesting. The estimate to get the electricity down to the property was £2,500. So we asked the guy from the electric board to come and visit us at our site. We were down there by now, and we were living in the little caravan next to the big one for the first few weeks. no electricity, no water, and what have you. And I had the impression to ask him, if we have the meter at the top of our property, the top of our drive, next to the electric pole on our land, how much would it cost? And he said £250 instead of £2,500. So with that £250 that we paid, plus buying the cable and building a little cubicle to put the electric meter in, we ended up, it cost us £500. So we saved £2,000 just on getting the electricity as well.
Water?
The water was, again, another miracle. We didn't realize it, but the land we bought, the water company had been putting a pipe across right through the whole area. They come across our land. We were entitled to compensation. They give us compensation, and it paid for the connection of the water.
Telephone?
And then the telephone, they promised us a date when the telephone would be connected. They failed to meet that date by 12 days. They give us compensation, and the compensation paid for the connection of the telephone.
So you can see how miracles just happen one after the other if you're doing what God wants you to do. And we really felt as though we were. And we were so excited. We were living in the country. We just felt as though we were on holiday. There's a lot more to our story. But
there's a garden picture there and other things.
If you could just show the garden and the polytunnel, these are some of the first things we did. I sort of did that while they were doing the building.
Yeah.
And then we bought a polytunnel and
then show the finished product, the house when it was finished.
So this is the garden, that's the polytunnel and our greenhouse there. And we're doing more garden there. And then if you just Tisserland, that's the house when it was finished. We sold it 4.5 years ago. Very sad to leave it, but it was just getting a bit too much for us in our
but the Lord gave me especially the skills to do this. I'd worked in the building trade for 7 years, learned to be electrician, plumber, seeing how the carpenters put roofs on and doors on and everything else. So I put all of that skill in those 7 years that I learned to put this property together.
It took us 5 years to do it with our son's help. He was a great help to us.
We moved into the first part of the property on the left, the house part first, and then we renovated the rest in the next 2.5 years.
So
great. Yeah, a great experience. Loved every minute of it, and no regrets at all. No.
So if you
want
questions?
Any more information, we have a ministry, ministryhelpsuk.com. We have a webpage.
All things is near at hand. The signs are rapidly fulfilling. Yet it would seem that but few realize that the day of the Lord is coming. The end of all things is near at hand. The signs are rapidly fulfilling. Yet it would seem that but few realize that the day of the Lord is coming swiftly, silently, as a thief in the night. Many are saying peace and safety, unless they are watching and waiting for their Lord. They will be taken as in a snare, a science of the devil. What is soon coming upon us?